Thank you very much, Macmillan, for the invitation to be part of the New Voices. I'm so honored to be here and I'm so happy. I hope everyone here in the audience will take something away from this talk. So let's get started. Now, the name of my presentation is Podcast Circles, Enhancing Students' Listening and Speaking Skills. And I have two questions for you, the audience. And these are the two questions. Are your students struggling with listening and speaking skills in your classes? What specific challenges do they have? Could you please write that in the chat box? Let me see if I can see your answers. Yes. What are the challenges you have? Different accents. Yeah, absolutely. They have difficulties extracting information from the audio. Yes. Grammar. Yes. Lack of vocabulary, confidence, pronunciation. Okay. Lack of vocabulary. Yeah, that could be accents. They're not familiarized with the pronunciation. They can't identify. Okay, great. Hello, everyone. Hello. Okay, great to know all that. And I hope with this presentation, you can get some ideas on how you can help your students become better listeners and better speakers. Okay, so this is our agenda. I'm going to explain what podcast circles are. Then I will talk about the benefits of using podcasts in our classrooms. After that, I will teach you how you can set up your own podcast circle. And finally, I will provide some suggestions for podcasts your students will love. So, what are podcast circles? A podcast circle works like a literature circle, but instead of discussing a book, students listen to a podcast and then come to class to discuss it. It's as simple as that, okay? So, what are the benefits of listening to podcasts? First of all, relevance. In the 21st century, students are more connected than ever, and podcasts just tap into that. There are thousands of episodes available on almost any topic, and I'm sure there must be a podcast out there that your students will love. I'm sure. Authentic listening practice. By exposing your students to different accents, speeds, and colloquial language, they will get a lot of practice, right? Independent learning, that is also very important because podcasts invite students to listen to content outside of class. And so we are fostering autonomy and love for learning. Critical thinking skills. You know, podcasts usually cover complex real world issues that will push students to think deeply, make connections, and form their own opinions. And finally, active listening, because when students engage in what they are listening, they are paying attention to what they are listening, they are making connections, they become better listeners, better communicators, and when they are working in the podcast circle, they also have to be good listeners because they have to listen to each other in order to keep a conversation, right? So, what can you do to set up your own podcast circle? First of all, you have to select a podcast that aligns with your learners' interests, curriculum goals, or the current unit topic. That is the first thing you have to do. Choose the podcast. Then your students will have to take down notes on what they hear, right? This is the typical worksheet I give my students, and I ask them to write a short summary of what they have listened to, and then 2 or 3 sentences with their main takeaways. And what you see here at the bottom of the page are the questions they are going to discuss during the debate, okay? So, Now, time to circle up. Now it's the time for the teacher to assign their students different roles. We will have the facilitator, that is the student who will guide, let's say, the discussion, ensure everyone has their turn to speak and keep the conversation flowing. Then we will have the note taker, that is the student who will recall the main key points in the conversation. The timekeeper is the student who monitors the time and ensures that each segment in the podcast circle stays within the allotted time. And finally, the speakers, that is the students who are going to have the debate, the conversation. Now, time for the discussion. First, the facilitator invites 3 speakers to present their podcast summaries, and then the debate begins. The facilitator reads the questions provided by the teacher and ensures that each speaker has an opportunity to contribute. And finally, the reflections. The facilitator asks each speaker to share their reflections on what they learned from the podcast and how it connects to their experience or interests. Each reflection should last 30 seconds, 1 minute. It all depends on the amount of students you have, okay? My classes are quite small, but if you work at a school, I quite aware that classes are much bigger, right? So now I want you to see my students in action, my beautiful babies. They were working on a unit about technology. And so I gave them a podcast from BBC English. And the name of this episode was, Should we fear chatbots? And here they are.
Well, first, Rob and Neil talk about what's an AI. Richard, they made a question about what's it called, the first AI, another one. Then they talk about their own chatbots and about the disadvantages and advantages about using AI. Rob said that the artificial intelligence work a bit like a human brain in the way that it can learn and process information. Thanks, Albert. Thanks, Melga. Thank you so much. Yes.
What do you think we have about using chatbots to do things like writing essays or completing homework? Is it fair? Why?
I think that if you use chatbots to do all your homework, I think that it's not fair because maybe the teacher can know if
What is real and what is
if a
not?
student do with ChatGPT with ChatGPT or that he do with
With your brain, with your mind.
brain. And I think that if you help with chatbots, it's good. But if you do all your homework, it's fine.
Okay.
I agree, and I think it is harmful for your brain because you cannot think about the homework you have. The chat do for you. Exactly. Thanks.
And it's a good part to the AI helps you, but you don't do an effort to learn. I know some part. For example, could be that the AI told a medical thing that could be wrong. Could, for example, a part of the body could be, I know, for example, an information of your brain, how it is composed, and could be that some parts tell you they say it could be bad or good because you don't know.
Continue better.
Well, in my opinion, I think that the ChatGPT or the AI will use a lot in the future because
that you need help, or you don't understand something, you can ask him to it, and it will be it can make an answer.
Time is over. Thank you very much.
Okay, that was it. That was it. This debate lasts more or less like 15 minutes, 20 minutes sometimes. Okay, so for you to have an idea. Now, I want to suggest some podcasts for you to start working on podcast circles with your own students. You can kick things off by introducing students to podcasts with this clip in which you will hear Julie Andrew talking about how to listen to a podcast. It's very sweet, very nice, very easy to understand. And then you can start exposing your learners to short episodes like the ones you will find in 6 Minute English. Voice of America is also great, and it has short episodes or 6-minute stories. Then if your students have a higher level of English, you can ask them to listen Smash Boom Best, which is a fun debate show that can help your students to articulate their opinion, construct logical arguments. It's great for that. Then Undiscovered, if your students love science, you can show them this podcast. Or if they want to listen to inspiring stories from women around the world, Girl Power is great. And if they like listening to stories, you can ask them to listen to This American Life or What Happened to the People of Limetown. This one is amazing, and it's amazing for you as a teacher too. Yes, I love this podcast. Okay, so then after listening to the podcast, after the discussion, you can also do follow-up activities, of course. You can ask them to write essays, write a podcast review, create visual summaries, podcast creations. My students create their own podcasts and they love doing that. Presentations, project, podcast transcript analysis. There are plenty of things you can do with your learners after having that debate. And now, okay, I want to make sure you can scan this code and have access to a summary of this presentation. I hope you have found it useful. You will find here in this document all the links from the podcast that I showed today, plus some information about how to set up your own podcast circles and everything, okay? Now, just to wrap things up, what's the most valuable insight you gained today? Are you going to do this with your students? Do you think it's something that you can do? Let me know. I'm so doing it. Oh, lovely. Absolutely, definitely, it's possible. Yes, it is. And you cannot imagine how much my students improved their listening skills and their speaking skills. I'll absolutely do it. Okay, well, I'm so happy. Okay, great. If you want to, I don't know, reach out to me or ask me any question, this is my Instagram account and you can send me any message. I will be there for you to ask any question or talk about podcasts or whatever you want.